Hi everybody, welcome aboard. Welcome to our part 3 webinar today on teaching our more experienced players improvisation. It's been a great journey so far. I've really had a ball doing the previous 2 parts. And look, if you haven't watched the previous ones, don't stop now, stay with me. But I'd really recommend that you hop over there and have a look at that. Those two webinars. The first one is teaching our older students in particular, rather than our tiny little 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And then the second one is looking more at teaching our slightly more experienced students. And then today we're going to do a little bit of an investigation of modes. And I think that we're in for a treat. I've really enjoyed recently having a play around with modes. And so I'm just hoping to share with you some of my experience there. I hope you enjoy it with me. Hey, look, one of the ways that you can use these webinars to your advantage is while we're live and you're watching us, don't even take notes. Just absorb, listen, flow along with us and take in what you can, because remember, this is really just a first grab, because what you can then do is have a look at the replay. And what I'd really recommend you do then is pop your device at your piano and watch the replay on YouTube on your device, and just pause it after each little demonstration of the concept that you'll be watching today. That way you get really hands-on with it, and I think that's just the best way to learn, rather than just letting it all be a theoretical space. So let me introduce myself. My name's Lindell Kennedy, and I'm the creator of our program Play a Story. I've also got my trusty Tim here, who's our tech whiz. And so if we get into any tech difficulties, he can help us out. But usually we're pretty stable. The other thing is, if you do get a connection that's not great, then just go ahead and push reconnect or refresh, or there's a little button there. It doesn't actually show up on mine, but I trust that it's on yours. So if you get any issues there. And hey, I would love to see who you are. Who am I talking to? So we had a lot of people register for this webinar, which is great, because it kind of shows me that, you know, people are interested in this topic. So don't be shy. Get yourself in there and write your name down and say who you're from, where you're from. That way I feel like I'm not just talking to outer space satellite. So hi, Tim. Yay! I've got one other person to talk to. That's fine. Can do that. Alrighty. So let's get going, because I know our time's really precious, and I certainly want to respect that time that you're spending with us. So as I said, we're going to take a little quick look at modes. Now, a little caveat here. I'm not an expert on modes. I don't claim to be. Hi, Sandy. Welcome, sweetheart. Welcome, Heather. Fantastic. Nice to have you here. And so what I'm going to show you is what I've been learning, because, you know, teachers are learners, right? And it's the one thing that we must always keep at the forefront of our minds, that we're learning alongside our students. We're learning as we discover new ideas and put them into place. And so, hey, this is me right out there learning how to bring this very creative dimension of improvisation to our students, who've been playing for a little while perhaps and wanting some new sounds. It's totally, totally fun. And so let's just have a look at where we're going to go today, so you know the plan. So first of all, I'm going to talk very briefly about modes, and a really simple way to look at the theory of modes without diving deep. As I said, we're not diving deep today. We're talking about it in how the mode makes us feel, really. So it's a fairly emotional connection to modes in music, and in the particularly in improvisation. So we're just going to look at my favourite three to teach with, and that's Dorian, Phrygian and Lydian. And then, as promised, we're going to look ahead a little bit about inner musician and where our vision is for the future and the programs that we've got currently in development. I'm just so excited. I'm not going to tell you any more about that because that's for later. So I really hope that you can hang out with us for the rest of the session today. And we've got Ruth, welcome from Eastern Australia, fantastic, from over east. So lovely to have you here again, guys. Just say hi to us. That'd be awesome. Let us know where you're from. All right, so the first thing that I want to look at today is the introduction to playing modes. With modes, what I find is really good to keep reminding my students is that this is going to be a different sound. Now, you might even find a little bit of resistance to it at the very, very beginning because they're really different sounds. Usually they reside mostly in the jazz scene, but there's no reason why they can't come across into all sorts of genres of music. And of course, musicians are using them in all sorts of contemporary music and improvisation as well. So we're just going to borrow those concepts of modes into our movie scenes. Now, for those of you who are not members of our inner musician family, I'd really recommend that you go there because you're going to see some fantastic movies that all of our teachers and our students have as a resource that really inspire the improvisational process. And it's a big part of feeling comfortable with improvisation. So let's go ahead and dive into that basic understanding of modes. Check this out. Let's launch out into the outer stratospheres of our galaxy and go where no ear has gone before. Well, actually, they have been there plenty of times. And of course, I'm talking about modes. Modes is something to really get your ear around. It's going to sound a little bit different to what you're used to if you haven't played around with them much, but I've been having quite a little bit of fun with this, dabbling with it lately. I guess when I work with the modes with my advanced students, really, I'm wanting to give them the environment of what the mode makes us feel like when it's put into a particular scene. Again, what we're trying to do is work out what do sounds make me feel like, because that's going to motivate our students to use them, because they're going to experience what they feel like and then go ahead and implement them. And of course, we're going to be able to explain that theory as we move forward. But today I just want to go through and show you some of the moods that we can create using some of these exquisite, exotic modes. So in brief, I'm going to explain modes against the C scale, so the all-white note scale. If you don't know much about modes, hopefully this is just a little bit of an introduction without getting too heavy. So with modes, I'm going to play for each improvisation a drone in my left hand. I'm going to pick out one of those white notes to create the mode. So my first one might be C, in which case I'm going to play a C scale over it, which we all know is the C mode. I mean, it's the easiest one. And this is called the Ionian. And I'm not even going to delve into that one because we're all completely used to it. Okay, so we're all good with that. The other one that we're not going to even talk about today is the Aeolian mode, because that is based on the A. So now if we use an all-white scale up against an A drone, we're going to get A minor. And it's the natural minor. So we don't even need to go there because you've had heaps of experience in A minor as well. A couple of other ones I'm not going to go into. One is the B, and that one is called the Locrian, and it's a wicked, wicked mode. Really difficult to get your head around, really hard to make sound fantastic. You can go into it. I'm going to leave it for the moment.
I'm going to concentrate on 3 of my favorites. One of them is D, and that's Dorian. The next one that I'm going to play around with is Phrygian. That's the drone on E. And the last one I'm going to play around with is Lydian, which means your drone is going to be on F. So this will be a little clearer as we move through these, but really want to demystify it. We actually just want to say, how does this sound when we use it, and how does it make us feel? My first favourite that I'm going to use is Dorian, and that means my left hand is going to play on the D. My right hand is going to play an all white note scale, but starting on D. It'll sound a little bit odd to your ears, and when you play a scale it doesn't really do it justice, but here it is. There's Dorian. The next one I'm going to step us through is the Phrygian, which is one of my very favourites, and that one is on E. And the last one I'm going to play around with a little bit is the one that's based on the F, which is our Lydian. And in actual fact, you know this one already because we've used this in the lullaby in the very last scene of Zephyrwind, which is our first journey. And it goes like this. And that's a beautiful one. I love that one. Very easy to make that one sound gorgeous.
Okay, so what did you think? Now, here's the thing. I want you to get into that chat room. Now, I'm noticing too that some people are finding their connection isn't working. So bear with us, guys. We're working on those satellites up there. Tim's out there working on it at the moment. But hopefully you'll find a reconnection. There are some people who are connected, so it's actually going forward anyway. So maybe if you just missed the very beginning of this, check it out on the replay later. But yeah, let's keep moving forward. I just love this idea of playing that drone in the left hand and listening to the sound that's produced by that mode as you begin on that next key and play your way up. What I'm really encouraging my students to do is to really listen to the tonalities and bring in, like, actually connect with the harmonies as they are created across the keys with that drone humming in the background. It's something that we kind of have to teach them. We have to show them that there's a new way of listening to sounds that aren't just a major scale, the Ionian, or the Aeolian minor scale. So yeah, it's a bit of a different zone. But you know what? Just jump in the chat box there. And what I'd love to know is, have you tried playing modes yourself? Is this something that you're familiar with? So if you have, just write done it. If you haven't done it, just pop it there in the chat box so that I can sort of get a feel for who I'm talking to, and it sort of just helps me understand who's tried this before. So just go in there and jump on. Yeah, okay, so a few people have, a few haven't. Alrighty, great. So Mara's done it. Awesome. I'm so pleased. So yeah, more people just waiting for you to just go in there and let me know if you've tried it yourself. Sandy hasn't done it. Awesome. This is going to be exciting then. I'm going to keep it really low-key and fun, right? So often when I hear musicians even talking about modes, you know, all of a sudden you see their eyes glaze over and it's like, oh my goodness, modes is like a totally different language. Today, we're not going to glaze over. We're just going to really feel comfortable with what we can do as we experience the modes. Okay, so here's another question. Have you taught modes before? So obviously for those who have already tried it for themselves, have you taught it before in the field of improvisation? That's what I would love to know, because I would actually really love to get your experience coming back as well. So for those guys who have said that they have done it there, have experienced it for themselves, have you taught it before? And so just as we keep moving forward, just let us know what your experience is, both in having done it yourself and experienced it yourself, and also having taught it. So Myra says she hasn't actually taught it yet, and hopefully this is the beginning of introducing this to your students. It's way cool. All right, let's now get into it then. Let's start with our very first mode that I'd like to demonstrate for you. And this mode is the Dorian. And we're taking the Dorian from the D drone on our scale. Let's go check it out.
So let's start with Dorian. Now, the best thing you can do is just sit down and start playing around with them, and just using your drone in the left hand, and it will indicate to you certain emotions, and everyone has a slightly different take on it. For me, the Dorian has a real intensity about it. It's almost foreboding, but at the same time, it has a slight uplift, and that's due to the way that the scale is constructed. I'm going to choose to demonstrate a bit of an improv on this one using Deep Blue. Deep Blue is from our second journey, the Ocean Lullaby, and it's kind of a bit of a water theme, which actually incidentally often Dorian is used for, and I didn't realize that till very recently. But I do often use this one for my students in our Deep Blue under the ocean. Oh, my students are always looking for the little shark that creeps up here. So it's kind of a good one to add that little bit of excitement as my students play along to this one. Fun to play. Okay, so you saw something happen there that I didn't explain beforehand. While I'm playing in D Dorian, what I really love about this little change, it elevates it slightly, which I think also increases the mystery about this particular mode. What I've done there is I've gone from D Dorian to E flat Dorian. Now, the interesting thing about the relationship between those two key signatures is that the F and the C are shared by both key signatures or both modes. And so it means that I can be playing in D really making the most of that C and F. They're kind of like my target notes. Doesn't mean I'm not playing other notes, but I'm really concentrating on pulling out the C and the F, because then when I change, see, that's still the C and F, and they can keep it constant even if that's all I do, and then go back to the D Dorian. See that? Isn't that nice? The other thing is that when I'm playing in D Dorian, I really like the attention that's caused from going from the B to the C and the E to the F, still being able to make the most of that C and F. When I then go into E flat Dorian, I'm actually going to go and cause tension between the F and G flat, because it's actually just the pentatonic. And of course, the C and the D flat. And back into the D. Oh, it's really fun. Once you start playing around with these modes, it's very, very cool. So the D Dorian always magnetizes. The homing beacon back home is to the D. You must keep the D there or you go into different keys. And then your right hand floats around those beautiful white notes. If you want to change the key signature for this one to give to your advanced students, I happen to love just moving it up a half step into E flat Dorian, and that way you retain the C and the F, but play pentatonic on all of the other notes. Ooh, delicious.
So, what do you think? Got a great comment from Amy here. I'm just going to read it because it's just so exciting. So, Amy says, I work with several teachers in a studio and we're coordinating to explore one mode a month. Love that. And identifying them with emojis. Oh, they're so cool. I'm a very emoji person, right? So we call it our emoji, following that. That's so awesome. Challenge. And we're improvising and composing. They've already done Aeolian, which of course is your minor, you know, that A minor scary kind of mode. It's awesome. And of course we've just had Halloween, so a lot of people have been using it there. So she's written scary, sneaky emoji. Love it. And now we're studying the Phrygian mode. And so her mood there is mysterious and wintry, which is interesting because I guess those guys in the US are going into their wintry mode. In Australia here, we're heading into summer. So we've just done our wintry mode. Thank goodness. Bring on the sunshine, I say. Alrighty, so that's just fantastic, Amy. I love that. All right, so there doesn't seem to be any questions there, so that just means that I'm a very cool teacher and I've taught really well and you've got no questions. But if you've got comments, throw them in there. I'd love to chat with you. Do you love that idea of switching from the D Dorian into the E flat Dorian? And hopefully you followed the connections that happen throughout those two modes when you just kind of creep from one to the next and then come back down again. I love doing that. And here's the other fun thing about that, you know how I was talking about that little semitone, tense little semitone thing happening there. It reminds me that when we play our very first motif in the Song of the Zeppelin. So this is the first time a student's ever touched the piano, and we give them the black pentatonic, right? Why? Because it's so safe. Why is it safe? It's actually safe because it's taken out the half steps that we normally have in a scale. So that means that we've taken all the tension out of the pentatonic so that they can play around and not be too challenged by the sounds that they're getting. Now, when we're using, in that example that I just gave you of the Dorian, and I'm pointing out, oh my goodness, there's these little half steps in these semitones, and we can really maximize the feeling that they give us of this kind of tense feeling that we want out of this particular mode. So that's really cool. All right, want to keep going. So let's now have a look at our next mode. So here we're going to have a quick sneak into our E Phrygian.
So just thinking about that beautiful deep blue, you know, I had to get my snorkeling gear on and dive deep for those movies. And it was an environment that I wasn't used to. And in a way, that mode kind of reflected how I felt when I was needing to dive down and not quite sure what was under the next shelf. A little bit similar to this one. This is the ice caves. It's another scene in our ocean lullaby. And in this one, we're going to use our Phrygian mode, which is based on our homing device, our gravity coming back to E. With this one, it literally does freeze the environment. My dear friend Forrest Kinney has a great way of describing this. He says that this mode dusts the white keys with snow. Ah, it's beautiful. So this one seems to fit perfectly with our ice caves scene. So let's go and have a look at that. Really, there's probably not a lot that I need to tell you about this one. I'm just kind of playing around and making it as cold as I can, which isn't difficult because the way that the flavor of this mood comes through really helps you bring that temperature down.
Cool. What did you think? I really like that one. So it's interesting that Amy, you're looking at doing Dorian next. So Amy says, I'm really glad to see the switch in the Dorian mode. Sorry, we're in Phrygian. We're going into Phrygian here. Sorry, I've just moved forward there. Okay, so left hand. What we can teach our students in that left hand is that essentially you want to stay with that bass note being the gravitational force, as I've explained. But as my students are now potentially a little bigger physically, they can also do an octave, and that's pretty cool. And what you've noticed there is that I've also done sort of a little, you know, 9th or 10th improv in the left hand as a little kind of mini motif that just helps to create that really lovely feeling of cold and a sort of a nice dynamic in that particular improv. And then in the right hand, whenever we're teaching modes or any kind of improvisation, to have singular notes that create that melodic improv is fantastic, but to also think about giving students the idea of playing in thirds, playing in fifths, but with this one, playing in sixths. It's kind of edgy. It kind of puts the chill factor down. It's fun. I really, really enjoy having students get used to that sixth interval, which often they're not using because, you know, it's sort of 1 to 5 intervals and a lot of music sort of stays in that zone. So using that together interval of a six is pretty cool and kind of challenging for students. All right, let's keep going. Let's go into the F Lydian. Check out that one with me.
The last mode that I'd like to spend just a few minutes on is the Lydian, which has its home note on F. Now, as I said before, you've actually already done this one because we have it in the lullaby, which is the last scene in Zephyrind. So I'm not going to show you too much on this one because it actually just works really well. This mode brings with it the feeling of open skies, floating atmospheres, really tethered to your spaceship and floating out in space, always with that tether pulling you back to the spaceship. So it's really a dreamy mode, and if you go back and have a look at it in our program, you'll see how that's used there with the B note that normally in the key of F would be flattened, whereas in this, because it's an all white note, it keeps the B as the white note. And that's really the significant note, that when you play that note, it's sort of got the characteristics of this mode. So let's go and float in space for a while. Really slow and listen to those harmonics as they pull. And instead of just using a drone on the octave in the left hand, add that fifth, that split through the octave on the fifth. change the feeling of the piece as it moves through. Always coming back to the F to pull you back to that gravitational force, back to the spaceship.
Nice. Yeah. Do you love these movies? I just find new uses for these movie clips all the time, you know, to change it up. And of course, every time I play it, it's entirely different. And how many years have I been playing those same scenes? Let me tell you, every time I play them, they motivate something slightly different in me because they connect me with the mood that I'm in at the time. And it's what we are all about, is connecting with music in the space and time that we exist at that moment. It's being able to really, tease out your own sense of presence in the moment. That's what, to me, makes improvisation such a special gift for myself, as well as to be able to pass that on to my students. It's so important. And I think in this day and age, the older I get, maybe that's what it is. Maybe times aren't changing. Maybe it's just I'm getting a little more better perspective on life. But we need to find some sort of space in our lives of being able to be reflective, to take that time out and reflect on how we're feeling, what's going on, and really centering ourselves, getting in touch with who we are in this moment. Gosh, I could keep going on about that for a while because that's kind of it's close to my heart. All right, so no questions on the last one, which was our Lydian. Okay, so let's now spend the last few minutes talking about our future direction that I'm sort of steering this beautiful ocean liner into in the future. So I wanted to just take a quick look at who we are in order to allow you to understand why we're pursuing this sort of next direction in our program. We've also got a lot of people here who are watching us on YouTube and watching the replay. And so I want to, in a sense, as we're looking forward, also to be able to bring you guys on board and introduce you to the heart of our program. So, first of all, we are a teacher body. We're a community of teachers who all share, in essence, that idea of every single person being musical and having the opportunity and the privilege to be able to express ourselves and not to just be playing other people's music, which is, of course, a fantastic thing. But wouldn't it be great to create a culture of students who are so confident in their own musicianship that that's who they are to start with. They are musicians already. And it's a matter of us unveiling to them their own other musicians and other ideas that other musicians bring to our experience. So as a teacher membership, we're an investment of $180 a year, or if you want to look at it this way, it's the cost of a cup of coffee a week. You can share that with me. Right? I love coffee. If you're not into coffee, it's a cup of tea a week, right? Go out to your local cafe and grab yourself a coffee. In seriousness, you pay off your investment in 7 student lessons, on average about 7 student lessons. But you know what it brings back to you is exponential. So, you know, I've just got here that even if you were to attract one extra student who was inspired on your introduction session or on your introductory email as you talked about what your studio offers, if you can inspire one student that you didn't normally, they wouldn't normally have attracted. Maybe you don't teach the really young children, and this is an opportunity to add a program to your studio that allows you to open up piano learning to 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. Then potentially that one student will make you around about $1,000 a year. That's a good investment. We are fully immersed in teaching teachers. So we're not going to just throw you in. Our program is full of live lesson videos that you can follow, lesson plans. And of course, we have our support of our creative teacher community who are on there talking all the time in our chat rooms. Plus, hey, you're going to be the hippest teacher on the block. Who would not love a teacher who uses videos to teach piano? That's very hip, right? For our students, it's a lifetime access for $60, and that's all of our 3 levels. That's all of our program at this stage. You know, it's the cost of an apple a day for the teacher, of course. Or if you like, it's the cost of about 3 piano lessons, and yet this is lifetime. Plus, for all the siblings that come along, they've all got access to this program. So we just think it's a huge value-packed program, and it's worth way more than $60. But why do we give it for $60? Because we want it to be accessible to everybody. And have a look at those rewards. I don't need to tell you more. They're all there. Let's keep moving forward. So the heart of our program is for us to be able to allow students to really tell their own story, as I said before. And we do that by modelling storytelling. So every scene in our 3 journeys has a story that's attached to that scene. Every one of those scenes is a different mood. It's a different motif that we attach to the story, so that when they play those few notes on the piano, all of a sudden they go, oh yeah, that is Egypt, or oh my goodness, I'm in Italy. All right, so these are fantastic tools because we're not having to teach an entire piece and all of that entails. We're just teaching a small idea. They can get that really super quick, and then the rest of the time is spent exploring it and adventuring around it across the piano. It's a really cool way to introduce students to the piano, and it's a really cool way to introduce students to improvisation, remembering that just because there might be advanced students doesn't mean that they're comfortable in the arena of improvisation. We really want to inspire creativity. Look, self-expression is a creative endeavour. It's something that is so important to the world as we move forward into the challenges that will meet the next generation. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard it, but I hear it often. I don't have a single creative cell in my body. And yet I'm going to say creativity is one of the defining characteristics of being human. If you are human, you are creative. It's who we are. It's part of us. And it's just kind of trying to work out how to take away the blockage to creativity that I'm encountering more and more in more students as we go forward. So into the chat site there, let me know, what do you think stands in the way of somebody really feeling creative? What stops them being creative? Just one-word answers, throw them there into the chat room there, into the chat box. What are some of the things that stand in the way of being creative? What stops people from feeling the freedom of being creative? And I'm not even just talking about in the realm of music, but in the realm of anything that they do. Drawing, there's so many things. So Henry's just said to us, I don't know where to start because I've never felt creative. And that's true. It's a mindset, isn't it? They come to us feeling not creative and therefore don't even have a clue where to start. And I guess the way that we're perhaps raising our children, and I don't want to be judgmental in this, but we're providing so much for them. When, no children, if you look at a child in their natural environment at Christmas time, they're more interested in the box that the Christmas present came in than the actual Christmas present. And so, that's an interesting thing to observe when the child is playing. Hi, Dale. Dale's just said forced conformity. Wow, really true. Love that. And we, through our exam system and in our education system, we're actually teaching our students to conform. We're saying we need you to sit this exam and write the answers exactly as our assessors want to hear. And my 18-year-old has just gone into has just actually finished her last final exams for high school, and it's very true. Sandy says self-doubt. Exactly right. It's really true. And I would like to suggest that self-doubt is something that we can really help them with, because we give them victories, we give them wins, and in doing so we instill confidence into our students. If you are confident, you can do anything, right? So we want to empower our students into their creativity. If you've ever sort of thought about that blank page syndrome, where that moment that you decide you'll produce something creative, but it all seems too overwhelming to even start, like Henry said earlier. How do you start? Will that first mark be the wrong one or the right one? Will that note that I choose sound great, or will it sound wrong? And will it cut me down? It's like the whiteness of this spotlight is glaring at your first attempts at creativity. Let me suggest that we can provide support for creativity by giving our students something to build on, something to start with, a keystone, something to make them feel less alone, something to make them feel less vulnerable and far more likely to have a go. And I guess that's a great segue into giving you some little broad details. That's a bit of a oxymoron, isn't it? About why we're going into our next development phase. Dale has just said creativity is crushed out of us usually by age 9 or so. And I agree with you, Dale, but I actually think it's probably earlier than that. And I think that having stuff to watch on screens, in an immense amount of stuff to watch on screens, where we're not actually actively participating in what we watch, has a lot to do with that dilution of creativity, natural creativity as it comes through. So let me go into where we're heading into the future. And I know that you're all anxious to hear this forward spectrum. We're well and truly into the development of this next phase. And so I just want to talk about 2 aspects of our development as we move forward from here. So the first aspect of it is in the realm of accompaniment. One thing that I've found that my students in the last few years are responding really beautifully to is my commitment to playing with them on the piano, to playing duet style, to teaching duet style. It's made a huge difference to their rhythmicality, if that's a word, to their confidence as they play with a rhythm, and to their ears attuning to harmonic changes as we both move across the piano, to their ability to learn to listen to somebody else. And so I guess that's been the motivating force behind encouraging students to play along with other people. One of the conversations over at Inner Circle at the moment, where it's a teaching community about teaching creatively, is the whole idea of some students, you know, you've probably had it yourself. I'm sure you have. I certainly have. Who, when you start to play along with them, kind of go, oh, I can't play with you, you're distracting, or I can't concentrate when someone else is playing, or I don't like it when somebody else plays with me because it puts me off, or, you know, those kind of pushes against being willing to play with other people. So we're developing along every scene a whole bunch of soundtracks that are orchestral in nature, cinematic in nature, less band-like, because that's already out there. You know, brilliant apps like iReal Pro, where you can put in your own chord progression, get it to spin out a fantastic band track in all sorts of different styles, any tempos, any key signatures. So we can already do that. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to bring to you something that you cannot get elsewhere. And so we're going to give you these beautiful instrumental film score tracks along with our scenes, where they're going to be able to play not only with just sound effects now, but with an orchestra in the background. We're going to give it to you. They'll be able to take in the click track or take out the click track. We'll have it in multiple keys, different tempos. What's more, we've actually got read-along lead sheets. And so harmonically, they're going to be able to follow a chordal score, still entirely improvisationally, because they're going to be able to get their harmonic influence from that lead sheet. And they're also going to get their melodic influence from that lead sheet, because they're going to understand the scale that comes out of the chord structure. And if you're not sure what I mean about that, go back to our last webinar where I discussed the importance of understanding scale in order to also understand, the importance of understanding chords in order to derive our scale understanding, because we do need to understand that to be free improvisers, completely freestyle players. We're also including in this whole segment of our program the duet ideas. So as you can see, they're just a tiny little snapshot, it's pretty tiny, of the type of duet layout that we have for each of those. And I'm saying that I'm actually sending home my parents with these duet ideas so that they can coach their students in getting used to playing with someone else. They are simplified down to sometimes just 2 notes that the coach has to play. So you're not teaching them in a lesson, you're not taking time up there, but you're certainly inspiring them to play alongside their students. It's very powerful. And lastly, our other focus that we're moving into at the moment, which I'm testing out in my studio, and I cannot believe the results that we're getting. It's kind of mind-blowing, actually. And so we're looking at composition. So clearly, improvisation stands alone as its own incredibly fantastic tool. But what if we take it to the next natural progression and we look at composition? So for composition, we're going to have to teach our students the concept of writing and scoring. And so while this might look like a reading and writing program, it's actually just the means by which we can move our students into composition, recording their own scores for all of our movies. So this is a little snapshot of one of the compositions that my student created about halfway through our next phase, which at the moment, this particular class that this little boy's in has been going for about 20 lessons so far, and I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of what has happened in that 20 lessons. But, you know, this is beautiful. This is only, I think he was about 5 or 6 lessons in, or maybe more than that, maybe a term in actually. So this was about the end of the first term, which is 10 weeks here in Australia. But what we're really doing in a typical weekly project, and again, just a little incidental here, I'm still taking all my students through 12 months of pure improvisation, because I think that's what the success is to moving it through into that reading arena, is because they actually already get everything I'm talking about. It's just now giving them a physical picture of what they're already playing on the piano. But they improvise with the new motif, which is our brilliant space theme. So it's an entirely different theme that we're using. Then they write and score their work into 8 bars. So they're always writing 8 bars of music. And then when they come back to their lesson the next week, they all get to perform their written composition. We add a new concept each week. And while they're playing their own compositions, the other students in my group are really listening critically and really encouraging the composer to explain to them how they felt when they were listening to their particular composition. It is so positive. It's so enriching. I guess that's why I just so love teaching group, because you get this feedback. So here's another composition from another little one, and this composition is a little further down the track. You can see that we've now made use of the triads and also a few more details in rhythm with the quavers or the 8th notes. So again, what we're doing at this stage, and now this is about, these kids are halfway through their second term, so it's about 15 weeks from not ever seeing one single note on the page to producing material like this that not only is entirely generated from themselves, but they're reading all of this. They know how to play these pieces by reading it. In actual fact, I also get the students to swap and they'll read each other's music. That's very cool, very empowering for these students. So what have they learned at this stage? They've learned whole notes right through to 8th notes or semibreves all the way down to quavers with their equivalent rests. So they're using all of those. Obviously, they've learnt time signature in order to facilitate that rhythmic knowledge. And we've worked in 4/4 and 3/4 time signatures. They've also learned how to notate throughout the positions of C, F and G. So we begin with just Cs. They work right across the treble clef and the bass clef, learning how to recognise their notes across both staves. They've learned all about intervals. They're very fluent with writing and identifying second, thirds, fourth, fifths into all of those different hand positions across those 5 octaves. They've learnt their dynamic marks, because of course we want them to bring those in. I don't want them just all of a sudden switching off the feeling and going into a mechanical reading of notes. I want them to feel it. What's more, I want them to communicate to the next student who's going to read their music something of their own expression when of what they intended when they played this piece or created this piece. So we've used those dynamic marks and also repeat marks. So all of our space movies go for 16 bars. So my students compose 8 bars and then they repeat. So they get to play their piece twice. And as you know, and I know from personal experience, usually the second time you play something is way better than the first time. You've kind of got into the groove and you're moving with it and you're kind of settled. And their second time through is to ensure that they get that confidence, they get that win, they get that smile, that elation on their face when they're finished. So, you know, these are just a little bit of a sneak peek into where we're going next in the development of our program. Now, we won't be rolling this out for a little while, because while we're very much into the production of these programs, we are still working hard at making sure they're fantastic. Now, I have to do a really careful dance here, because I know that our teachers are just itching to get through to this next stage in taking their students further past their first year. The dance for me is getting it out there, and also a little internal dance with my own sense of perfectionism. And I do understand that. So I'm trying to honor myself and just go, you know what, Linda, let's just get it out there. This is good. It's okay. And also being able to say, yeah, but this is part of who I am. And I just love to reflect myself in the way that, honors who I am as well. So, yeah, I don't know. How does that feel to you guys? Give me some feedback. I'd love to hear how you feel about where we're going. I don't know. What do you reckon? I'd love to see your comments in the box there just as we wind up. We're right on the hour, which is so cool. As I said, these programs are built on existing key theoretical concepts that we've already done in Play a Story. So I'm still saying, get your students into Play a Story. It's magical and mighty. It's an awesome way to get these students onto the piano and having them be creative. For our very, very last minute, it's actually a minute and a half, hang about. I want to give you a sneak preview into one of my lessons that I had a little while ago with my students on the composition program with our new theme of space. Let's check this out. And that's what music's all about. Are you ready to go? Tune up first, make sure we're all happy with us. Oh my goodness. Perfect. Let's do it. Yay. I am so keen for this. I'm so excited. Mara, I'm so pleased that this sounds awesome to you. And also Sandy, so great to see your comments hopping up in there. Guys, I'm just so committed to this. I can't wait to show you as it unfolds and keep you up to date. I think that we might do another webinar, maybe next time, I'm not sure, where I can sort of just tease out some of these ideas that I'm playing with in my studio, just as a little, just to bring you on board the whole way and have your feedback and let me know how it is. And Mara, yeah, I can understand about being a perfectionist. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a good or a bad thing, right? It drives us to amazing places, but yeah, matter of doing that dance. All right, hey, thank you again. Ciao, scoot, skedad. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.